how do you talk to your kids about STDs and STIs? I'm here with JD, aka Jen Divine, from superstarhealtheducation.com, and I'm Cathy Bartoli from theintimacydojo.com. And it's a big thing now. Like, when I was growing up, nobody talked about STDs or STIs. They assumed we weren't having sex, even though some of them were. My 12th grade best friend got pregnant, so apparently something happened. But people don't, like, how do you talk to them about it? How much do you share, and how do you not freak them out and make them really scared about stuff?
Well, I think it's one of those things that you include in the conversations that you have about bodies and how things work. Mm-hmm. And doing it in a way that is not stigmatizing is really important from the very beginning. So for younger kids, like, first of all, STD, STI,
what
is that? Yeah. Sexually, right? Sexually transmitted diseases and infections. So you have to kind of define those big words, especially if you're talking to little kids. So sexually, sometimes bodies touch, and they might include their genitals. So that's sexually. Woohoo. Transmitted, going from one person to another. Diseases and infections, most people know what that is. Yeah. Like, common cold, little tiny things that get in our bodies that, like, most of the bacteria and viruses that hang out with us are pretty friendly. Mm-hmm. But some of them can cause the body some harm or be really dangerous to us. So letting kids know what those things are. So then, for younger kids, often it's just letting them know that those things exist. Mm-hmm. So that, like, kids aren't doing this sexually, because they're usually not getting their bodies together with other people with consent, because kids can't always give consent, right? So they're not doing the sex thing, kids, right? Hopefully. Although, okay, going off on a tangent. Maybe
we'll have another video about that.
Do that thing again. Okay. But letting kids know that, like, when bodies come together, there's sometimes little diseases or bacteria that might go from one person to another person. And they can sometimes go between genitals, or between mouths and genitals, and sometimes some other ways too. So for younger kids, that's usually what I mean when I explain what they are. But I also say, and there's great ways people can protect themselves from some of those things that can go between people. Yeah. And, what a lot of young people commonly choose is just to not let their bodies touch in that way. Like, that's actually pretty common. Kids and even young teens, most of the time they're not doing sexual things, and so far they're more safer. But sometimes people want to do things that are the sexually things, right? The sexual things.
Well, I think having them know what to do if they decide to is a big thing.
Right, and then knowing which things are risky, right? So they know which things they do need to protect for, and making sure they know about, like, there's behavioral protection, like choosing to, you have a cold sore. I don't think it's a great time to make out with you right now, right? So no, they can choose a behavior that's less risky. Barriers, things that they can put between themselves and another person, like a condom or a latex glove,
or
saran wrap, various things. There's vaccines that they can get protected by. So, like, 3 vaccines that are pretty common: hepatitis A and hepatitis B. Usually kids are vaccinated for, just because public schools often require that already. And then the human papillomavirus vaccine, which all genders can now get, which used to protect against only 4 of the human papillomavirus, but now there's Gardasil 9, brand name, but it's the only one available, 9 of the 40 types of HPV that like to live in genitals. There are hundreds of types of those viruses that are around, but it's nice to protect against the ones that are most commonly associated with cancers or warts. So for little kids, just letting them know what they are and that they exist. So if bodies come together, they need to know a lot about that, and help them know that they need to get more information as they get older, figuring out how to protect, so that they can still have fun and not stigmatize the fact that, in some places 90% of people are going to get STDs of one sort or another. Although, herpes didn't even used to be considered an STD, whatever.
It was when there came a treatment for it that they decided to make it a disease.
Exactly. So not stigmatizing the fact that many people are going to bump into these viruses and bacteria and protozoa and parasites in their lives. And, we can all live healthy, happy lives, even if we have something that's living with us.
Yeah, a friend of mine talks about the most common STI is the common cold, and it really normalized it for me. It's like, wow, I've had the cold, I survived. It's not shameful.
Well, and think about it. When you have a cold, like, we tell our friends, right? We say to our friend, oh, I don't feel very good today.
Yeah.
My nose is plugged up. I have a cold.
Don't share my soda today.
Right. And people will say, oh, I have empathy for you. You have a cold. But you feel the stigma of how STDs get talked about if somebody comes into your workplace and says,
Like,
no.
I
I got gonorrhea of the throat last week, and I felt terrible, but I got it, I felt it's still a little scratchy, but I'm on treatment. People give the look, or like, we don't get to talk about it in a normalizing way,
right.
when many people have bumped into things with their genitals or their mouths. And if we could just talk about it and say, oh yeah,
Well,
had a little outbreak last week, I was a little sore when I peed, like, people maybe would get a little less weird about it.
Yeah. Well, and if people got tested more often too,
Absolutely.
a lot of the treatments are actually surprisingly easy if you know you have it.
Absolutely. And then, acting responsibly, meaning like what you're thinking and like know information, and then condoms, barriers, and getting tested. And then the adjunct to that is, of course, talking more, because talking about stuff is also the antidote, because then people can choose less risky behaviors each time they make a decision.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Do you go into the individual, like syphilis, gonorrhea?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when it gets to the middle school, I go into detail about everything. With the younger kids in elementary school, I might just ask them which ones they've heard of and rattle off the names of the 20 or so I would cover in more detail. But that age group, they're not going to retain that kind of information. But it's good for them to hear the names and know that...
And normalize
what they are. With high school kids, you can go into all the cool details about how viruses replicate and what bacteria do and how antibiotics work and all that nerdy fun stuff.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We hope this helped. Please leave comments below. Let us know if you have questions, thoughts, concerns. We'd love to know.